A distress call unleashed the Deathworlder Armada. Part 1. In the quiet darkness of space, far from the bright center of the galaxy, a small fleet of Caliph ships floated near a dying world called Thren 7. The Caliph were gentle beings with soft skin and large eyes made for low light. They came from planets with weak gravity and calm weather. They never fought wars because their bodies broke too easily under hard work or anger. Now their worlds burned. A strange enemy had come. The enemy was not alive in the way most creatures are. It was a swarm of tiny machines that ate metal and rock and turned everything into more of themselves. Long ago, some forgotten race built the first ones to explore and build. Now the machines followed only one rule: make more, make more, make more. They had no leader, no fear, no mercy. The swarm reached the Caliph border 3 cycles earlier. At first, the Caliph tried to talk. They sent messages of peace. They offered data and maps. Swarm did not answer. It simply spread. Drones the size of insects landed on colony domes. They chewed through shields. They turned living plants into gray dust. Cities became empty shells in days. Entire moons lost their air and became cold rocks. The Caliph had no army. They had scientists and farmers and artists. They had ships for travel and trade, not for battle. Their leaders gathered in the last safe station, high above Thren 7. They looked at screens that showed red alerts everywhere. One leader named Lyra stood tall, even though her legs shook. She spoke in a soft voice. "We cannot stop this. We must ask for help." They sent the message on every open channel. They used old codes and new ones. They begged anyone who listened. "Our worlds die. We have no fighters. We ask for shelter or a quick end if no help comes." The words traveled through relay stations across the stars. Most races heard the call and felt sad. Many turned away. The swarm grew too fast. No one wanted to fight an enemy that doubled every few days. The great councils debated and wrote reports and did nothing. Time passed. Weeks became months. The Caliph waited. Survivors hid in deep bunkers on Thren 7. They ate stored food and told stories to children to keep fear away. Each day, fewer signals came back from other worlds. The swarm moved closer. Every night, the sky above Thren 7 showed new streaks of light as drones fell like deadly rain. Lyra stayed at her post. She watched the empty screens. Her hands held tight to the console. One technician, a young male named Vorn, came to her. He said, "No one answers. Not one ship. Not one word." Lyra looked at him with calm eyes. "Then we wait longer. Someone will hear." Far away on the other side of known space, a blue-green world spun around a yellow sun. The people there called their home Terra. They were different from everyone else. Their planet was heavy with thick air, full of oxygen, that burned lungs of other races. Storms raged across wide oceans. Beasts with waterfalls, sharp teeth, hunted in dark forests. Heat and cold fought over the land every year. A people who lived there grew strong from birth. They ran fast. They lifted heavy things. They survived wounds that killed others. They laughed when danger came close. The humans had joined the galactic community only 80 years before. Many races called them Deathworlders. The name came from old surveys that measured danger. Terra earned the highest mark, Class 12. No other world came close. The humans did not mind the name. They wore it like a badge. They traded goods. They shared stories. They made friends when they could. Yet most aliens kept distance. They feared the strength they saw. They feared the calm way humans faced pain. One night on Terra, a relay station caught a weak signal. It came from far away. The computers checked the code and flagged it as urgent. The message played in clear words, a distress call from the Caliph. The words reached every major hub in human space. Within minutes, alarms sounded in fleet bases on Luna and Mars. and in orbit around Earth command centers, filled with officers who read the same lines again and again. No long meeting happened. No vote was needed. The old rule was simple. When an ally calls, we answer. When the call says help or mercy, we choose help. The order went out fast. Code, blood oath, full alert. All active fleets move now. Ships woke from standby mode. Engines roared to life. Crews ran to stations. Pilots checked weapons. Engineers pushed reactors past safe levels. The fleet was huge. 400 main warships. Thousands of smaller craft, fighters and dropships waited in bays. The ships carried names like Wrath of Soul, Thunderchild, Eternal Guard. They were built wide and thick. Armor covered every side. Guns pointed in all directions. Humans liked to be ready. The flagship was a massive vessel named Harbinger's Wrath. Admiral Elena Voss stood on the bridge. She was tall, with short dark hair, and scars on her arms from old fights. Swarm data. Once she saw the numbers of drones and the speed of spread. She turned to her officers and said, "All ships, weapons free on arrival. We do not talk to machines that eat worlds." The fleet formed up in tight formation. They pointed their bows toward the rim. They charged jump drives. The space around them bent and twisted. Light stretched into long lines. The Armada vanished into hyperspace. A wave of power rolled across the void, heading straight for Thren 7. Back on Thren 7, the last Caliph looked up from their shelters. Sensors caught something new. A huge distortion appeared at the edge of the system. Hundreds of signatures bloomed like sudden stars. The signals did not match any known friendly fleet. The swarm noticed too. Drones turned away from the planet and flew toward the newcomers. Lyra stood at a cracked viewport. She pressed her hand to the cold glass. Her voice was barely a whisper. Who came? Who heard us? The sky above the ruined world filled with bright flashes. The Armada arrived. Word count 1,350. A distress call unleashed the Deathworlder Armada. Part 2. The Armada left human space in a rush that shook the stars. 400 capital ships led the way. Thousands of escorts followed close. Fighters and support craft filled the gaps between them. The jump drives hummed with power that could crack planets if aimed wrong. Every reactor burned hot past normal limits. Crews worked without rest because time mattered more than sleep. Admiral Elena Voss stood on the bridge of Harbinger's Wrath. She watched the jump timer count down. Her face showed no fear, only focus. She had seen many battles before, some against pirates, some against storms on Terra, some against things no one else dared face. This time felt different. This time an ally called, and humans answered without question. The fleet carried a special code, Blood Oath. It came from old human stories. When one tribe faced death, others ran to help. No matter the distance, no matter the cost. The code woke every ship in range. It pulled reserves from training yards. It called retired captains back to command. It turned merchants into warships overnight. The galaxy saw humans as traders or explorers. Now, they would see something else. Inside the ships, life moved fast. Marines checked armor that weighed more than most aliens could lift. Weapons clicked into place. Railguns hummed with charged coils. Blades shone under bright lights. Engineers ran diagnostics on shields that could take hits from small moons. Pilots sat in cockpits and joked about who would score first kills. Medics prepared trauma bays because humans knew pain came even to the strong. Voss turned to her executive officer, Captain Marcus Hale. He was broad-shouldered with a calm voice that cut through noise. He said, "Jump in 30 seconds. All ships report green status." Voss nodded. "Good. Tell them one thing. We protect our own. The Caliph asked for help. They get everything we have." The countdown reached 0. Space folded around the fleet, stretched into impossible shapes. Colors twisted and screamed. Then silence. Then real space snapped back. The Armada appeared above Thren 7 in a wall of arrival flashes. The sky of the dying world lit up like day. Hundreds of ships hung there, massive and dark against the stars. On the surface, Kalith survivors looked up from cracked bunkers. Their large eyes grew wide. They saw shapes they did not know. Huge hulls covered in guns, thick armor scarred from past wars. Engines glowed blue-white with power. One young Kalith child pointed and said, "They look like mountains that fly." His mother pulled him close and whispered, "They came." The swarm reacted fast. Trillions of tiny drones lifted from the ruined cities. They formed clouds that blocked the sun. They flew toward the new threat in perfect waves. The machines calculated. Humans were unknown. New mass to consume. New data to process. They did not fear. They only hungered. Voss watched the sensor screens fill with red contacts. She smiled. Small and cold. All ships weapons free. Target priority 1. The replication hubs. Fire at will. The Armada answered with thunder. Kinetic lances shot first. Long spears of metal accelerated to fractions of light speed. They punched through drone swarms and kept going. Some hit larger hive ships and tore them open like paper. Antimatter torpedoes followed. Bright points of light bloomed into spheres of pure destruction. Entire formations vanished in white fire. Plasma macrocannons roared in sequence. Beams of superheated gas carved paths through the enemy. Humans did not stop at range. They closed in. Dropships launched by the hundreds. Pods shaped like arrows slammed into hive hulls. Marines poured out in boarding actions. They moved in vacuum without fear. They treated radiation like warm rain. They laughed over open channels as they cut through drone walls. One Marine named Jack said over comms, "This is better than shore leave." Another answered, "Keep talking, you'll jinx it." Watched from hidden relays. They saw feeds from salvaged drones. The images showed armored figures ripping machines apart with bare hands. They saw humans shrug off hits that would shred other species. One feed showed a Marine take a drone blade through the shoulder. He pulled it out, tossed it aside, and kept fighting. The Kalith gasped. They had never seen such things. Lyra, the Kalith leader, stood in her command bunker. She stared at the main screen. The Armada pushed forward without pause. Ships took damage and kept coming. Repair drones swarmed over hulls like insects, fixing breaches faster than the swarm could make new ones. Engineers on human vessels worked miracles. They patched armor while under fire. They rerouted power from dead sections. They turned failing systems into weapons. A Kalith technician named Vorn whispered to Lyra, "They fight like the world itself hates them, and they hated back." Lyra nodded slowly. "They come from a hard place, a place that kills the weak. We break easy. They do not." The battle grew fiercer. The swarm tried new tactics. It sent waves shaped like spears. It tried to overwhelm single ships. It failed. Every time a human vessel took heavy hits, nearby ships moved to shield it. They formed walls of overlapping fire. Fields of drones exploded under concentrated barrages. The machines learned fast, but humans adapted faster. On Harbinger's Wrath, Voss received updates from scout teams. They found the main replication core, a moon-sized station hidden in the outer belt. It churned out new drones by the billions. She studied the scan for 1 minute, then spoke. "All elements converge on target designation, Core 1. We end this at the source." The fleet shifted formation. Capital ships formed a spearhead. Escorts guarded the flanks. Fighters swept ahead, clearing paths. The Armada moved like one living thing. It burned toward the heart of the swarm. The Kalith who watched felt something new, hope mixed with awe. These strangers did not come to end, talk, or trade. They came to destroy the destroyer. Marines inside boarding pods sang old songs from Terra. Loud voices filled the channels. They sang of storms and battles and unbreakable will. The songs carried no fear, only joy. The swarm had no songs, it had only code. Humans had both. As the armada closed on the core, the swarm threw everything left. Drones swarmed in numbers too large to count. Hive ships rammed forward in suicide runs. Human shields flared bright under the assault. Ships rocked but held formation. One frigate named Iron Rain took a direct hit to its engine deck. It listed hard, but kept firing. Its captain ordered full burn toward the nearest hive. All hands brace. This is for the Caliph. The frigate struck true. The collision lit space like a new sun. The blast wave cleared a path for the rest of the fleet. Voss watched the explosion fade, and said, "Remember that name. Iron Rain carries us forward." The Caliph's survivors in their bunkers began to cheer. At first, then louder. They clapped their thin hands. They hugged each other. For the first time in months, they believed the nightmare might end. The armada pressed on. Engines roared. Guns spoke without pause. The Deathworlders moved deeper into enemy space. They fought not for land or wealth, but for a promise made across the stars. When you call, we come. When you hurt, we answer with fire. Word count 1,350. A distress call unleashed the Deathworlder Armada. Part 3. The Armada hung above Thren 7 like a storm cloud made of steel and fire. Every ship glowed from engine burn and weapon discharge. The swarm clouds twisted toward them in endless waves. The tiny machines tried to cover the sky. They wanted to eat the newcomers. The humans did not let them close. Admiral Elena Voss watched from the bridge of Harbinger's Wrath. Her eyes stayed on the main tactical display. Red icons blinked for enemy drones. Green icons showed friendly ships. She spoke in a clear voice. "All lances focus fire on the outer hive rings. Break their formation, now." The orders spread fast. Capital ships turned as one, long barrels aligned. Kinetic spears launched in perfect timing. The projectiles moved so fast they left trails of light. They punched holes through drone swarms. Some spears kept going and struck the larger hive ships behind. The hits caused chain explosions. Bright flashes lit the dark side of Thren 7. Kalith's survivors in the bunkers felt the ground shake. They looked up through small viewports. The sky burned white and gold. They saw human ships move without fear. One frigate named Stormbreaker flew straight into a thick drone cloud. It fired every gun at once. The cloud parted like water around a rock. The frigate emerged on the other side, trailing smoke but still fighting. Marines launched next. Boarding pods shot from launch bays like arrows. They slammed into hive hulls with heavy thuds. Airlocks blew open. Power-armored figures poured out. They moved in low gravity like they owned the place. They carried rifles that spat hypersonic rounds. They swung blades that cut through metal like cloth. Inside the hives, the fight turned close and brutal. Drones swarmed in tight corridors. They climbed walls and ceilings. Humans laughed over comms. One Marine named Kira said, "Look at these little bugs. They think they can tickle us." Another Marine answered, "Keep laughing. They hate that." A squad pushed deeper into a main replication chamber. The room hummed with machines. Thousands of new drones rolled off assembly lines. The humans threw grenades that burst into EMP pulses. Lights flickered. Machines froze mid-build. Marines rushed forward. They smashed control nodes with rifle butts. They tore wiring with gauntleted hands. One Marine lifted a heavy processor core and crushed it in his grip. The chamber went dark. On the surface, Lyra watched salvaged feeds in her bunker. The images showed humans fighting in ways that made no sense. They took hits from drone blades and kept moving. Blood leaked from armor gaps. They sealed wounds with quick patches and fought on. A Caliph healer next to Lyra whispered, How do they live through that? Lyra answered, they come from a world that tries to kill them every day. This is normal for them. The swarm changed tactics. It pulled back from direct attacks. It formed dead spheres around key human ships. It tried to overwhelm with numbers. The Armada answered with overlapping fire fields. Plasma beams crossed in patterns that left no gaps. Antimatter charges detonated inside the spheres. The blasts cleared huge sections of space. The machines lost trillions in seconds. Voss received a report from engineering teams. They had captured a live swarm sample. They studied it on a secure lab ship. Engineers worked fast. They used tools from Terra biology labs. They found weak points in the replication code. One engineer said, the machines use simple error correction. We can flood them with bad data. They built a virus in under an hour. They loaded it into missiles and fired. The missiles flew true. They burrowed into hive cores. They released the counter code. The machines inside started to fail. They built wrong parts. They turned on each other. The swarm faltered for the first time. Its perfect order broke. Calith watchers cheered in their shelters. Soft voices rose together. They clapped thin hands against metal walls. Hugged children who had known only fear. One elder said, the Deathworlders bring life back to us. They fight so we do not have to. The Armada pushed forward. Ships repaired themselves on the move. Small drones crawled over hulls. They welded plates. They rerouted power. Humans worked in zero gravity without suits for short times. They breathed hard air and laughed about it. One pilot flew his fighter through a gap in the swarm. He spun and twisted, dodging every attack. He scored kill after kill. His voice came over comms. This is fun. Who wants to race? The swarm tried one last push. It gathered every remaining hive ship. It formed a giant arrow aimed at Harbinger's wrath. The flagship did not run. Voss ordered, all batteries concentrate fire. Full barrage. No mercy. The Armada answered. Guns spoke together. The sound rolled across space like thunder. The arrow formation shattered. Pieces of hive ships tumbled away. Drones scattered in panic. The humans chased them down. They picked off stragglers, one by one. In the main command bunker, Lyra stood with her staff. They watched the battle turn. The red icons on their old screens started to fade. Green icons held strong. The Caliph felt something warm in their chests. It was hope mixed with wonder. These strangers from a poison world had come. They had not asked for thanks. They had not waited for payment. They simply fought. A young Caliph technician ran into the room. He carried a working comm unit. He said, I have a signal from the human flagship. They want to talk to us. Lyra stepped forward. Her voice shook only a little. Put them through. The holoscreen flickered. A human face appeared. It was Voss. She still wore her combat helmet. The visor was up. Her eyes looked tired but sharp. She spoke in simple words. Calith Forces, this is Admiral Voss of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We have broken the outer swarm. We push to the core now. Hold your positions. We will clear the way. Lyra bowed low even. Though the gesture might not mean the same to humans, she said, Thank you, Admiral. We waited so long. We thought no one would come. Voss answered, You called. We heard. Allies do not leave each other to die. The connection cut. The screen went dark. Lyra turned to her people. Tears ran down her soft cheeks. She said, They fight for strangers. They fight like the stars themselves help them. We will remember this day. Outside, the battle raged on. The Armada closed on the heart of the swarm. The core waited ahead, a moon-sized station that never stopped building. The humans did not slow. They burned brighter. They moved faster. They showed the galaxy what Deathworlders could do when someone needed them. Marines sang again over open channels, old songs from Terra about unbreakable hearts and endless fights. The swarm had no answer for songs. It had only silence. The humans filled that silence with fire and steel. The Caliph listened to the songs from hidden speakers. They did not understand words. They understood the feeling: strength, loyalty, courage. The death world had arrived. It brought death to the machines and life to the helpless. Word count 1,350. A distress call unleashed the Deathworlder Armada. Part 4. The Armada drove straight toward the swarm core like a blade cutting through flesh. The moon-sized station loomed ahead. Its surface crawled with endless drone bays. It spat new machines faster than eyes could follow. Lights pulsed across its hull in cold patterns. The core had no fear. It had no name. It existed only to grow. Admiral Elena Voss stood on the bridge of Harbinger's Wrath. She studied the final scans. The core spun slowly. Its defenses formed thick layers of drone shields and automated turrets. She spoke once. All ships form assault wedge. Harbinger's Wrath takes point. Full speed. No retreat. The fleet answered without delay. Capital ships slid into position. Escorts filled the gaps. Fighters swarmed ahead like angry insects. The formation looked sharp and unstoppable. Engines burned white-hot. The Armada closed the last distance in minutes. Space itself seemed to bend around their charge. Its final wall. Every remaining hive ship rushed forward. They moved in suicide patterns. They tried to block the path with their bodies. Human guns never stopped. Kinetic lances tore through the front ranks. Antimatter blasts ripped open gaps. Plasma beams carved long wounds. The swarm ships broke apart in showers of sparks and metal. One destroyer named Voidhammer took heavy fire. Its portside armor peeled away. Flames licked from cracked sections. The captain kept the ship on course. He said over comms, "We hold the line for the flagship. Keep firing." The Voidhammer rammed a hive ship head-on. The collision lit space like a newborn star. The blast cleared a wide corridor straight to the core. Marines prepared for the final push. They loaded into reinforced boarding craft. These pods carried extra armor and heavy weapons. Teams checked seals. They tested blades. They shared quick jokes. One sergeant named Reyes said, "Last one inside buys the first round back home." His squad laughed loud. Knew the stakes. They did not care. The pods launched in waves. They streaked toward the core. Like needles, they pierced the outer shell. Explosive charges blew entry holes. Marines poured through the breaches. They moved in tight squads. Power armor clanged against metal floors. They faced swarms of defender drones. The fight turned hand to hand. Humans fought with joy and fury. They used rifles until ammo ran dry. Then they switched to blades. They used fists when blades dulled. One Marine lost an arm to a drone saw. He tied off the wound with a quick clamp. He picked up his rifle with the other hand. He kept shooting. His voice stayed calm over comms. "Just a scratch. Keep moving." Inside the core chambers, the machines tried to adapt. They rebuilt walls. They spawned new drones from hidden vats. Humans broke everything they touched. Engineers moved behind the assault teams. They planted charges on main processors. They hacked data nodes. They uploaded kill codes. The swarms started to stutter. Perfect timing. Slipped. Caliph watchers followed the battle through faint relay signals. Lyra stood in her bunker with her staff. They saw feeds of humans tearing through the heart of the enemy. One image showed a Marine standing on a fallen hive controller. He raised his fist. The background burned bright. The Caliph felt their thin chests tighten with something like pride. These strangers fought harder than any legend they knew. Voss received constant updates. Her voice stayed steady. Engineering report. Core integrity at 60%. We can end it now. She turned to weapons control. Prepare the ram. All other ships clear the path. The order went out fast. Escorts pulled back. Fighters swept aside. The Harbinger's Wrath accelerated alone. The flagship built speed. It aimed straight for the core center. Its bow armor thickened for the impact. Crews braced in every section. Bulkheads sealed tight. Voss sat in her command chair. She said simple words. For the Caliph, for every world they took. This ends here. The Armada watched as one ship, the Harbinger's Wrath, struck the core at high velocity. The crash shook the entire system. Metal screamed, light flared, the bow punched deep inside. The ship kept going. It tore through layers of machinery. It crushed replication halls. It left a trail of ruin behind. Marines inside the breach used the chaos. They pushed deeper. They reached the primary nexus, a giant chamber filled with glowing cores. The nexus pulsed like a heart. It tried to spawn one last defense wave. Humans met it with everything left. Grenades flew, EMP bursts flashed, blades swung, railgun rounds punched through. The nexus cracked, its light dimmed. An engineer planted the final charge, a shaped antimatter pack. He set the timer short. He yelled, "Fall back now." The squad ran. They fought their way out through collapsing corridors. Behind them, the charge counted down. The Harbinger's Wrath backed out of the wound. It pulled free with grinding metal, shuddered. Its surface split open in long cracks. Light poured from the brakes. The entire structure buckled inward. The nexus exploded from the inside. Fire bloomed outward. The moon-sized station tore itself apart in slow motion. Debris spread in a wide ring. The swarm signals died one by one. No more drones launched. No more hives moved. The machines stopped. The silence felt huge after so much noise. Voss watched the destruction fade. She spoke over fleet-wide comms. The core is gone. The swarm is finished. Good work, everyone. Stand down combat operations. Begin search and rescue for any survivors. The Armada turned its guns quiet. Ships scanned the wreckage. They found human pods and escape craft. They pulled survivors aboard. Medics worked fast. They treated burns and breaks. They laughed with the wounded, because that was how humans healed. On Thren 7, the Caliph emerged from bunkers. They stepped onto the surface for the first time in months. Air still carried ash, but no drones fell. They looked up at the sky. The Armada hung there like guardians. Stars shone clear again. Lyra walked to an open field. She raised her arms. She spoke to her people. The Deathworlders kept their word. They came, they fought, they won. We live because of them. Other Caliph joined her. They formed a circle. They sang a quiet song of thanks. The sound carried across the ruins. It mixed with the hum of human repair ships landing nearby. Engineers stepped out. They carried tools and supplies. They started work without orders. They helped rebuild, because that was part of the oath too. Across the galaxy, other species watched the feeds. Panic spread in quiet council rooms. They whispered to each other. The Deathworlders answered one call with enough force to end a plague that lasted centuries. What if they turn that strength elsewhere? What if someone else calls them enemy? Diplomats sent messages to human embassies. They asked careful questions. They received calm replies. Friends, we remember our promises. That was all they said. Yet the words carried weight. The Armada did not stay long. Some ships jumped home. Others remained to guard the rim. Engineering teams built new shields around Caliph worlds. They taught survivors how to use simple weapons. They shared stories around campfires. The Caliph listened wide-eyed. They learned about a blue world with wild seas and fierce beasts. They learned why humans smile in the face of death. Admiral Voss met Lyra one last time on the surface. They stood under a repaired dome. Voss wore no helmet. Her hair moved in the recycled air. She said, "Your worlds are safe now. We leave a battle group here until you stand strong again." Lyra bowed deep. "Thank you for everything. We will never forget." Voss answered, "Friends do not need thanks. Just call if you need us." The meeting ended. The Armada prepared to leave. Engines warmed. Jump drives charged. The Caliph watched from every viewport. They saw the ships turn. They saw light stretch. They saw the fleet vanish into the black. The silence returned, but this time it felt safe. The Deathworlders had come and gone. They left behind rebuilt cities and new hope. They left behind a promise carved in fire and steel. Word count 1,350. A distress call unleashed the Deathworlder Armada. Part 5. The swarm core broke into 1,000 pieces that drifted slow through empty space. The Armada stayed long enough to make sure nothing lived in the wreckage. Small scout ships flew patterns. They scanned every chunk. They found only dead machines. No signals, no movement. The galaxy felt quieter than it had in many years. Admiral Elena Voss gave the order to stand down. Most ships prepared for the long jump home. Engines cooled from redline. Repair teams finished patches on hulls. Medics cleared the last wounded from bays. Marines cleaned weapons and told stories of the fight. They laughed about close calls. They remembered fallen friends with quiet words. A small group of vessels stayed behind. They formed a protective ring around the Calith worlds. The battle group carried engineers and builders. They brought seeds and machines. They helped rebuild what the swarm had taken. Humans worked side by side with Calith. Lifted heavy beams. They wired new power lines. They planted green things in fresh soil. The Calith watched with wonder. These Deathworlders who fought like storms now worked with gentle hands. Lyra walked the new fields with Voss one bright morning. The sky above Thren 7 showed clear blue for the first time since the attack. Grass pushed through cracked ground. Small flowers opened under weak sun. Lyra touched a leaf and said, "Your people give us more than victory. You give us tomorrow." Voss looked at the horizon and answered, "Tomorrow belongs to those who fight for it. We just make sure the fight stays fair." The two leaders talked long. They spoke of old wars and new peace. They spoke of a galaxy that feared humans, yet needed them. Lyra asked a question that hung heavy. What happens if another call comes from far away? Voss met her eyes and said, "We answer, every time. The code does not change. Blood oath means forever." Word of the battle spread fast. Relay stations carried stories to every corner. Ships from other races arrived slow at first. They came to see with their own eyes. They saw human vessels guarding Calith borders. They saw rebuilt cities rising from ash. They saw children of soft species playing near armored marines. The visitors asked quiet questions. They received honest answers. Humans did not brag. They simply said, "We keep our promises." Councils met in hidden chambers. Alien leaders debated late into nights. They weighed the power they had witnessed. Some spoke of fear. They said the Deathworlders could turn that strength against anyone. Others spoke of respect. They said loyalty like that deserved trust. In the end, most agreed. One truth stood clear. Never ignore a human distress call. Never test their patience. Years passed. The Calith grew strong again. Their worlds bloomed with life. Their ships traveled safe lanes. New stations rose in orbit. They named one harbor Voss Point in quiet honor. The name spread. The galaxy learned it meant safety for the weak. Humans returned to their blue world. They told tales around fires. They carved names of lost ships into stone. They trained new crews. They built better weapons. They waited calm and ready. The Armada slept, but never died. It waited for the next call. One night, far from Terra, a small scout ship from a distant race sent a weak signal. Trouble came fast. Pirates with stolen tech attacked their colony. The scout broadcast wide, "Help if anyone hears. We have no defense." The message traveled long. It reached human relays. It woke the old code. Alarms sounded again. Ships stirred from docks. Crews ran to stations. Engines roared alive. The fleet formed fast, not as large as before, but sharp and sure. Voss stood on a new flagship named Oathkeeper. She read the signal once. She smiled small. Here we go again. The Armada jumped. They crossed the void. They arrived in time. They fought. They won. They left guards and builders. They vanished into jump space. The rescued race sent thanks. One reply. We heard. We came. That is all. Stories grew. Legends took root. In quiet bars on rim worlds, spacers told of the Deathworlders. They spoke of a fleet that answered distress with thunder. They spoke of people who laughed in battle, who bled and kept fighting, who rebuilt what they saved. The name Deathworlder changed. It carried less fear and more awe. Caliph elders taught young ones the tale. They gathered under stars. They said, "Long ago our worlds burned. We sent a call into darkness. The Deathworld answered. It came with fire and steel. It saved us. It taught us strength comes in many forms. Remember their name. Remember their oath." Children listened wide-eyed. They asked, "Will they come if we need them again?" Elders answered, "Yes. When you call, they hear. When you hurt, they answer. Always." On Terra, life moved on. Storms raged. Beasts hunted. Cities grew tall. Humans trained hard. They ran. They lifted. They fought mock battles. They prepared because they knew the stars held danger. They knew allies waited out there. They knew one signal could wake the Armada again. Voss retired in time. She lived on a quiet coast. She watched waves crash. She held a small carved stone from Thren 7. It carried Caliph's script that said, "Thank you, friend." She smiled when she touched it. She knew the work never truly ended. One day a message arrived from far space, another call, another plea. She read it slow. She stood. She walked to the old calm. She sent one word. Answered. The cycle continued. The galaxy turned. The death world waited. Patient, loyal, terrifying in its love. The distress call had unleashed something more than ships. It had shown a truth. No one stands alone when humans claim you as kin. Stars burned on. Planets spun. Worlds lived because once a gentle people asked for help and received an armada in return. The promise held strong. Across light years, across time, the Deathworlder Armada stayed ready, always listening, always coming. 150. And dash.